It was simple, really. Head to Oxford, beat the army, capture the king, force him to do what we wanted, and everything would be back to normal. 1 month, one battle, and victory would be ours. Oh, if only we knew the truth.
So it's time for the second battle of turn 1. This is the big one. The combined parliamentarian forces are attacking the King's army in Oxfordshire. It is an equal battle, numbers-wise, so it should be pretty interesting. So both sides have comparable infantry, comparable cavalry, artillery support. There's not a huge amount of difference to either force. As per the campaign rules, because the parliamentarian armies were coming on from different directions, we have rolled to see whether they would start the battle together or whether they would end up coming on at different periods. And the result was that they will start the battle at the same time. The objectives are pretty well the same for both forces, and that is to destroy the enemy army and remain in control of the field. Now, seeing as they are the defenders, the royalists get the right to defend or choose the battlefield, so they did deploy first. However, as the royalists, I was going to use a couple of troops to set some traps for my opponents so they're not going to start on the table. See if you can guess where they're going to be. And then the parliamentarians deployed second. So I took quite a strong central position with my infantry, massed my cavalry on the left wing, on my left flank, sorry, and held my cuirassiers and one arquebusier on my right. Parliamentarians was a sort of similar mirrored deployment, although they had all of their cavalry concentrated on the right with just the cuirassiers on the left. So turn 1 saw a general advance pretty well across the board. Apart from, for me, I left my infantry in the centre unmoved. As his commanded shot advanced forwards, my first surprise unit popped up from behind the walls of the little manor house and laid into them with a bit of withering fire, which did some nice damage. My second trap, as their cavalry were charging towards my cav, my unmounted dragoons or dismounted dragoons popped up and fired away into their flank also. Then it was time for the artillery on both sides to blast each other, inflicting several casualties on both armies, which is always nice at the start of the game. Overall, not many casualties turn 1. Yeah, it was more of a manoeuvre turn. As we moved into turn 2, there was a little bit of firing going to take effect as more troops moved into range. On my right wing, I started to swing my cavalry round. My central line stayed as they were, and on my left, my cavalry charged into his forces. He did dispatch one of his units to attack my dragoons, who had mounted up. But dragoons are going to get a disadvantage in cavalry combat because they're not actually trained cavalrymen, they are just mounted infantry. So it would be interesting to see what the outcome was going to be there. So again, my commanded shot started peppering his troops and inflicting some nice damage. He returned fire. Luckily I had the wall, so that mitigated quite a few of the points of damage. In the centre, both our lines of musketeers started blasting away, and there were casualties starting to mount. It was kind of a tricky one. Who do we concentrate on, musketeers or pikemen? Yeah, so I was concentrating more on pikes, he was firing more on musketeers. So just to see who's going to have the best outcome. The artillery, again, blasting away from both sides, cutting big swathes through each of our infantry blocks. So on the right hand side of the parliamentarians, the big melee of cavalry resulted in quite a few regiments actually breaking, 2 per side, which was quite interesting actually. My dragoons were broken and one of my arquebusiers, and 2 of his arquebusiers. So turn 3 started off with not a huge amount of difference. On the right, the remaining troops, cavalry-wise, swirled around and maintained the combat. In the centre, the line started to form into a proper line, and on the left, my cavalry started to advance towards his cuirassiers. The infantry commanded shots from both sides, kept blasting away at each other trying to get the advantage. He had moved into the cover of the stone walls, which was a good move from his perspective. Again in the centre, musket fire into his pikes, artillery fire into his pikes, trying to do everything that I can to slow him down. On the left, his light gun firing in onto my cuirassiers. My light gun concentrating on his pike, and his heavy gun concentrating on my infantry in the centre. So this turn saw a lot of casualties. His commanded shot on his right wing had pulled back, seeing as he'd lost a lot of cav, but as you can see, quite a bit of manoeuvre going on this turn. So with turn 4, pretty well all of the cavalry was either destroyed or routed. One of my units which had routed the previous turn rallied, so that was good for me, and kind of gave me control of my left side, my left flank. In the centre, the infantry were advancing still, so not a huge amount of difference. Both sides just letting each other have it with muskets and cannon fire. And in the rule set that I've come up with, artillery does quite a large psychological effect as well as causing casualties, so it's always the thought, do I concentrate on one unit to destroy it, or do I spread my fire between a few different regiments to cause them each to have a bit of a negative on their morale rolls? Yeah. But that turn saw, several of his units on the right fleeing, my cavalry reformed, and we're getting ready for the big punch up of turn 4. So in the centre, his pike blocks did finally reach my lines. I advanced my reformed cavalry up so they're ready to attack him in one of the flanks, whilst he's doing everything he can to try and rally his cavalry units before they flee the board. So it's a bit of a perilous time for the parliamentarian force. And on the opposite side, his cuirassiers were engaged with mine, and that's going to be a bit of a tough situation. His musketeers in the centre keep peppering away at mine, my artillery, and his artillery keep blasting away. And the casualties were definitely mounting for both of us. Then I had a very close range, sort of grape shot blast into his pikes, plus a point blank range of musket fire, which pretty well saw the end of his first pike block and severely wounded his second. So with turn 5, again the writing was on the wall really as to what was going to happen. On the left, my cavalry had overwhelmed his. On the right, same again. One of his infantry units, or pike, had been annihilated. The other one had been basically annihilated. It's about to rout. It had been forced back, and then it's going to rout in a second, just across the board. Not looking good for the parliamentarian forces whatsoever. So he made the decision again, is it a good idea to stay and fight to the last man, or should we try and withdraw? And because in this campaign we're going to need as many troops as we possibly can in future battles, he made the decision to withdraw. He rolled a 5, which is unfortunate because that means he will suffer some casualties. which was a d6 plus 3, so that's a minus, and so that's -7 cohesion to his units. So not particularly good for the parliamentarians, either in the fighting or in their withdrawal, but they did manage to get their armies out in some semblance of order. So overall, for the parliamentarians, turn 1 has been pretty terrible. They lost in the north and they've lost at Oxford, so not good. Very good for the royalists, so sort of similar to what happened historically, because the royalists did start off with a good bit of luck. So we shall see what happens in turn 2. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave some likes, some suggestions down below, and I'll see you in the next one.